When was the last time that you played tourist in your own city or town or neighboring village? It's so much fun. Have you ever done it overnight? With staycations being so popular right now because of the time of COVID, this is a really fun thing to do, and the first time that I did it in the city of St. John's, where I've been living since 2011, I spent a night in Quidi Vidi Village, which is a neighborhood, used to be a separate village from St. John's, but it's really only about 20 minutes walk away. I used to live halfway between Quidi Vidi Lake and downtown, and so I used to go there. My grocery store was right at the head of the lake, and I used to walk this beautiful 3.8 kilometer trail that goes around the lake. It's so beautiful in all weather and all seasons, and as a photographer you can see that I've had a fair bit of fun there already. You'll always find there some walkers and joggers and lots of dogs to look at, which I always love, but it's nice and peaceful, quiet. Except, of course, during one event every year, and that's the Royal St. John's Regatta. This event is a whole different story. I'm not much for crowds, but it attracts about 50,000 people. So I did it once, one of my first years here, just to say that I'd done it, and that was the only time I ventured there during that time of year. The regatta has been going on for over 200 years. It's actually one of the oldest, or the oldest, organized sporting event in North America. I prefer the area for the trails, not just the lake, but the East Coast Trail. The Sugarloaf Trail takes off right beside and climbs up over the village that you see here. And it goes for this section of the East Coast Trail for 8.8 kilometers all the way to the Ocean Science Center in Logie Bay. They say it takes about 3.5 hours, but if you're like me and you walk with a camera, it could take you the entire day. Gorgeous coastline. You see here the yellow building, that's the plantation where you have a lot of artists. And so I took these pictures, of course, not during my one day there because it was a rainy adventure. But here you see the gut, which is what they call the harbor that goes into Quidi Vidi Village. And in this village here, the trails and just the mix of the new and the old, the plantation where you have a lot of artists, you have the Quidi Vidi Brewery where I actually visited. I don't like beer, but when my relatives came over, of course I took them there and found out about their famous iceberg beer and all sorts of others, Eric's Red, which you saw the painting there. And it was one of the first places I went after we sort of stopped this, stay at home during COVID. I went there for the sunrise, just to get out of the house, be in nature, and, away from my neighborhood loop. But speaking of neighborhoods, once on my way to the grocery store when I lived in that area, I decided to take a little detour, and what did I find? An iceberg just sitting there, I'd say 20 minutes away from where I lived in downtown St. John's. Now, the weather in Newfoundland and Labrador is always an adventure. You never know what you're going to get. It was certainly cold and rainy on July 16th when I went there and was later joined by a friend. And I was lucky to be invited to spend a night at the Christ Church, which you'll get to see inside soon. And I decided to do things that I never done before, including interviewing a couple of people who make Quidi Vidi Village and a couple of locations that make Quidi Vidi Village what it is. And so enjoy what I have to offer here this time for you, and I'm hoping that it inspires you to go and explore a neighborhood in your city. Go ahead, spend a night somewhere and pretend that you're in a completely different place, different city, different country, and be tourist. Talk to people, take pictures, or just follow your flow and see where it takes you. Enjoy!
We don't get very much rain around here, though. At one point in time back in the 1800s, this was a fishing room, and the fishing rooms would consist of a stage with some sleeping quarters, a kitchen, a twine loft, and an area for preparing their fish. And they would come in after hauling their traps or doing their cod jigging, and they would throw the fish up, and they would they would gut the fish and take the head off and haul the guts out, and they would split the fish and take the sound bone out, and then they would actually salt it for a period of time, and then they would put it out into the sun up on flakes. Sometimes when it started to rain or something, everybody in the village would sort of run to their flakes, their families and kids and children, women and all, and they would actually take all of their fish in or turn it over and cover it so as it wouldn't get wet. And then when the next sunny day began, they would put it all out on the flakes again. And sometime during the day they would actually go and turn it over and have it so much on one side, and the fish will be drying. This is an old whaling boat here, actually. We have the oars, which are on the side of the building there, which are 20 pound and they're 18 feet long. And we used to row in this boat for practicing, and in 1981 we broke the 80-year-old record. This boat here, the whaling boat, is 1,700 pound, and we put 5,000 pound of sandbags in it, and actually we ended up putting the old fisherman pudding bags down in the back here, down through, and we used to drag them and to make it harder basically. And we used to row from here up to St. John's Harbour, down towards Outer Cove and out towards the Cape. And every day we would come down and row on this boat, and we used to spend about 3 hours a day down here just working out, doing weights. And but the boat here was the one that probably gave us the strength and the power to break the 80-year-old record in 1981 with the Smith and Stockley St. John's Boys and Girls Club. Well, sometimes when we get out there and we're rowing down I remember one day rowing down towards Outer Cove that way. When we turned around and started coming back, there was wicked tide on, and when we were coming back, it seemed like the boat wasn't moving at all, but you were doing a lot of hard labour, a lot of hard work, and every stroke you take, you figure you move a bit, but it didn't seem like you were moving because the tide was just keeping you in the one place. And there's lots of times when you row in this harbour, coming up down between the Bury and the cliff here, there's a tide there. Sometimes it's you'd certainly feel it there too. And another day coming in through Quidi Vidi, in through the gut there, we Well, I remember one day coming in, it seemed like we were there about 10 minutes trying to get in through the gut, and because it was a big tide and there, just suck it out through the harbour. And every stroke you take, it was pretty tiresome. Well, when I remember when I was a youngster, we used to figure that it was basically a different part sort of thing, you know, two different places. The town and the village were two different places, and we used to have it figured out that when you got up to the top of the hill in Quidi Vidi, that was the end of Quidi Vidi, and when you got over around the bridge over towards Fort Pepperell, that was the end on the other side. So. And we always used to be told when we were growing up not to go past the bridge and don't go past the top of the hill. So you're always wondering what the name of God was up on the other sides that was going to get you. So we were terrified to go up past the hill and terrified to go over past the bridge. So as youngsters, you know. Yeah, and we used to have the saltfish for the winter, and we'd have fish two days a week, and we'd have jigs dinner 2 days a week, and so on a Thursday and a Sunday we'd have a jigs dinner, and on a Wednesday we would be two fast days. Fast day would be Wednesday and the fast day would be Friday, Irish Catholics, and so we would have fish on a Wednesday and fish on a Friday, so that was the two fast days. And my mother too used to make the chips, we always call them. We call them French fries, but we always call them chips, right? So she used to make the dollar chips, the round ones, or that's mostly what she used to make. With 12 in the family, there used to be all kinds of potatoes stacked up that high with dollar chips on the table, but it wouldn't last long on the table with all hands. So. Then there's another day we would have toutons, and then there's another day we would have ham bones. An old Lear fence. You see a lot of these fences in Ireland, England, and different places. Long while ago, when there was lots of trees there, especially in Ireland. But this is it's called a Lear fence, L-E-A-R. This one here took, I'd say it took 3 weeks to build this fence. It's a very simple fence, but it's a very time-consuming fence. You'd have your main post up and down here, and you have your longers going across the post. You have the longers, one longer on top, one in the middle, one on the bottom. And what you would do, you would put your riglet, was a stick like this, a riglet they would call them. You would put a riglet on the top here, and then you would put it down on the back of the middle one, and then you would haul it out on the bottom of on the bottom one there, and you would go along the fence doing the same thing. Like this one here, this is the opposite side, so you just do the same thing, but you do it on the opposite side of the fence.
And when we got too wet, well, then it was time to head home. Home for our one day, the beautiful Christ Church. Oh, what a beautiful place to stay. I'll let you enjoy it for yourself, but I have to say that fireplace got some good use to warm up after being soaked out in the rain.
Basically, Mallard is kind of, very focused on local sustainable foods and vegetables. So we do have a garden out back behind the restaurant where we do grow rhubarb and kale and fresh herbs and anything we can kind of get to grow in the Newfoundland soil. Besides that, everything is kind of locally sourced. So all our meats and all our vegetables, like I said, come from different organic farms and stuff around the province. And basically, we kind of want people to feel like they're coming into someone's home or cottage. A very laid-back experience while still having a high quality of food and service. And that's pretty much what we do down in Mallard. So Todd Perrin would be kind of what we'd call the executive chef. So right now our chef de cuisine would be David Woods. So David is the one who makes the menu every day, is kind of in the trenches there doing service with our chefs. Todd is kind of more in a overseer kind of brand role. So he was came to notoriety for different appearances he's had on the Food Network. So he was a part of Top Chef Canada. He was recently a judge on Wall of Chefs, which was on their programming as well. Todd's kind of, like I said, very focused on kind of approachable, welcoming atmosphere with kind of high quality food that is based specifically out of Newfoundland. So lots of fresh seafood, halibut, cod, stuff like that. And like I said, as much kind of fresh vegetables as we can get in the province, given how difficult it is to kind of grow stuff here.
Right, so we have our fritters with our house-made yogurt, za'atar, and mint.
Have your spaghetti with the white sauce.
For the full meal, you have your choice of an appetizer, a pasta, main dish, 2 sides, and the most delicious dessert, which I forgot to photograph that chocolate cake, sorry, and an Irish cream coffee or a digestif if you so wish.